What is going on, old school scares, and welcome back to our last day of our monster movies on our 31 day of Halloween movie reviews. We only got one movie left after this, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But today we get to talk about one of the best monster movies ever made, The Thing by John Carpenter from 1982. This movie is awesome. Again, an easy watch. It's just under 2 hours, like an hour and 50 minutes, but it flies by. I absolutely love this movie. Man, I get to talk to you guys the last 3 days about Jurassic Park, Jaws, and The Thing. Just a bunch of great movies that you've probably seen, but if you haven't, go back and watch it. This movie, to me, is John Carpenter's best movie. And I know that's super controversial to say with all the other great movies he's made, but I'm going to explain to you why I absolutely love this movie. First of all, the cast is amazing, right? You know, we think about the three main build actors in this movie, but you've got Kurt Russell, Keith David, and Wilford Brimley, who were all huge stars at the time. You have a huge cast after T.K. Carter, Charles Hallahan, a bunch of really good actors in this movie who absolutely shine. But what I love about this movie, I think more than any other movie that Carpenter has done, is it brings through a sense of dread, a sense of isolation, and a sense of cold. Now, I've seen a ton of horror movies that can give me a true sense of dread. To bring that true sense of isolation and that sense of cold are very, very tough to do. And there's not a lot of movies that have been able to do that. And I'll explain what I mean to you. So when you watch this movie, if you haven't seen it before, the premise is you have a bunch of scientists in the Antarctic basically working, taking samples of the ice and doing things like that. And at the beginning of the movie, they find one of their teams that's also in the Antarctic, the Norwegian team, basically chasing a husky through the snow, throwing bombs at it, like grenades, trying to blow the dog up. And the dog comes to their camp. They crash their helicopter, and the Americans are trying to figure out what the hell is going on. They have no clue. So they bring the dog in, not realizing that the dog is really an escaped alien from the ice that had been trapped under the ice for thousands of years, and it can assimilate anything that it touches and basically make a almost perfect recreation of that. These guys all work closely together. There's a sense of camaraderie. There's a sense of trust, and it's an all-male cast, which is interesting because it's just very different. That something you wouldn't see today. You'd be more focused on making a movie today that had a ton of conversation around, do you have enough diversity and stuff. But at the time, this movie was about, hey, realistically, you would have had a bunch of male scientists living alone in the Arctic. So it was very realistic, but it also led to that sense of isolation we talked about, right? These guys are kind of on their own, and they're going to be on their own for a while. There's something there that is looking to go in and attack them, and what I love about this movie is that the characters are all really smart. They're scientists, right? They don't do dumb things, right? They're not going in and making silly decisions. They're not trying to go in and, when they're not assimilated, they're not like, oh, let's go separate or let's go do this. No, they're looking to try to find ways to find the monster, to find ways to kill it, to find ways to protect themselves. But this movie does a really good job of creating a sense of unease and a lack of trust between these characters who've always been together and trusted each other. When I say creating that sense of isolation, again, I've seen some other movies that do a good job of that. But what I love about this movie is that sense of cold. If you ever lived in a cold weather area, we live in the Northeast, and the winters can be brutally cold, right? We have some of that time in January, February where it's just miserable, and it feels cold. And it's different. When you wake up in the morning, you just feel cold. Even in a house that's warm, it still just feels cold out. And you know that cold's out there and it can come at you at any time. And in this movie, the cold is another character. Not only are they dealing with the monster, they're dealing with the cold. And I love the fact that he does a great job with that. And to me, I think it's his best directing job. Like I said, I just think he does an incredible job. I think visually it looks great. I think that sense of dread, the sense of isolation, the sense of cold all come through the screen, which aren't easy to do. So I think it's just incredibly well done. If you've seen the movie, there's a ton of iconic scenes. When I was thinking about the scariest scene in the movie, I'm probably going to go to the most iconic scene in the movie. And there's a bunch of great scenes, right? When the dogs first come through, where they're testing the blood and it attacks. But I think the most iconic scene is when Charles Hallahan's character has a heart attack and the doctor is trying to resuscitate him, and he goes to use the defibrillators. And this is a huge spoiler, so if you haven't seen this movie yet, shut me off right now, go watch it, and then we can come back and talk later on. But he has the defibrillator, he goes through the chest opens up to this giant stomach mouth, and it bites his hands off. Man, that scene as a kid scared the crap out of me. And then his character's head falls off and turns into this spider. Holy crap. And again, this movie was all practical effects, no CGI. It's just so good. So well done. I can't say enough great things about The Thing. I love the movie. And if you don't know, it's a remake from a 1950s movie called The Thing from Another World, which I will cover in one of these videos in the future, talking about some of the best sequels, or not sequels, but remakes of all time, where this definitely falls into. So that's the review for The Thing. If you haven't done so far, please hit that like and subscribe button. Tomorrow for Halloween, we're going to talk about Trick or Treat from 2007, one of my all-time favorite horror anthology movies. So, as always, stay scary, and we'll talk to you soon.